I have always believed in friendship, in its strength, depth, and importance. Since childhood, I have been told that true friends are those who are there for you not only on holidays, but also when the whole world is falling apart. Perhaps that is why when I entered university, I opened up to new acquaintances so easily. It was then that I met Igor and Maxim. Iyer was cheerful, energetic, always had a lot of stories to tell, and could light up a room with just one look. Maxim was calmer, more thoughtful, serious, and sometimes even a little mysterious. All three of us studied at the same faculty, sat together in classes, and worked on joint projects. Over time, we began to call ourselves the Inseparable Three. I was sincerely happy to have such friends. I believed that it would be forever. We studied for exams together, made coffee until 3 in the morning in the dormitory, celebrated birthdays, and just talked endlessly about everything. Everything seemed right, but over time something began to change. Unnoticeably, but noticeably. First, it was small things. I was reworking joint projects almost on my own, because Iyer is very tired, he has a job. Or, Maxim needs to be with his girlfriend, he already helps as much as he can. I didn't say anything. I am a friend, and I understand that there are difficult days. I'm strong, I can handle it. But then they started contacting me only when they needed something. Could you please drop me off at the university? I overslept again? Can you send me the notes for the last lectures? I didn't have time to write them down. It's not difficult for you, is it? This phrase became a refrain in our conversations. I heard it all the time, and I silently agreed, because we were friends. It seemed that when I needed support, they just disappeared. I remember once I got sick. The temperature was under 40. My whole body ached. I wrote to Igor and asked him to bring me at least some antipyretics, because I couldn't get up. He replied something like, "Sorry, I'm busy, I won't have time." An hour later, I saw his stories from the bar laughing, drinking a cocktail. Everything went cold inside. It was painful, but I was still holding on. Maxim once borrowed a large sum of money from me. For a few days, a few weeks passed. I politely reminded him. He was offended. "Don't you trust me?" And I said nothing more, because I was a friend, because I believed they were good people and it was just a difficult time. But each new case added a drop of disappointment to my heart. I started to analyze. I remembered how many times I had helped them when they didn't even think about thanking me, how I canceled my own plans to be there for them, and how I heard only silence in return. I still tried to talk to them. I arranged a serious conversation. We met in a coffee shop. I thought about my words for a long time, spoke calmly, without accusations. I just shared how I felt, how hard it was to be a friend on the lookout. They listened, nodded, even apologized. They said I was right, that there would be changes, that they appreciated it. I left that meeting feeling relieved. I thought everything would get better, but everything went back to square one within a week. And then I realized you cannot change those who do not want to change. You cannot waste yourself on those who see you only as a convenience. I was looking at my phone screen when Igor sent me another message. "Can you pick me up from the station? I have a heavy bag." And suddenly I felt nothing. No anger, no pain. Only a cold, hard enough. After that evening, when I felt that strange, unfamiliar peace in response to Igor's next request, something in me finally broke, or perhaps, for the first time, healed. I did not reply to his message. Not because I wanted to take revenge or make him worry. I just didn't see any point in it. I no longer wanted to be the person who was always there for me, but always last on the list of priorities. It all started with little things. I stopped initiating meetings. I didn't write first. When Igor or Maxim invited me to meet for a minute, "I have a question," I politely but firmly refused. It's amazing how quickly the dynamic changed. None of them tried to just talk to me to find out how I was doing. And what was most painful was that no one asked me why I had started to withdraw. I felt a mixture of relief and loneliness, as if for the first time in a long time I had space to breathe, but at the same time, as if I was alone in the midst of silence. But this silence was more honest than their voices. There was no falsity in it. It did not require me to make constant efforts to please. I began to spend more time with myself. I read books that I had long put aside. I returned to drawing. I had loved sketching since childhood, but hadn't touched a pencil in years. He listened to music, walked alone, sometimes just sat in a coffee shop with a cup of latte and looked at people. And in these moments of solitude, I suddenly began to feel alive. Gradually, I began to rethink everything that had happened. I rewound the years of friendship in my head, looked through old correspondence, remembered how often I had to justify their behavior. I was looking for excuses because I was afraid of losing what I considered valuable. But the truth was simple, I was holding on to an illusion. Not the people, the idea of what they could be like if they valued me as much as I valued them. The hardest thing was to admit that the problem was not with them, but with me. The fact that I allowed myself to be treated like that. I became a resource for them because I agreed to be one. I was comfortable in the role of the one who will always help. Because I needed approval. I needed the feeling that I was needed, even at the cost of my own internal exhaustion. During this period, one random phrase from the book helped me a lot. You are not a convenience. You are a value. I wrote it down on a piece of paper and stuck it to the mirror. Every morning I repeated it like a mantra. At first, it seemed naive. But over time, I believed it. Because true friendship is when you are not just used, but seen, heard, and respected. A few weeks later, Maxim sent a message. Are you offended? We haven't seen each other for a long time. We have something to talk about. I looked at the screen and I had no resentment or regret. Only calmness. I answered honestly, Maxim, I'm no longer ready to be someone who is approached only when something is needed. If you want to talk like a human being without topics, right? But if it's just another request, I'll pass. He didn't reply. And you know it was good. Several months have passed. My life changed, not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually like the morning fog that dissipates in the sun. I no longer thought about Ire or Maxim every day. Their names still appeared in conversations, in memories, but without pain. Without regret. It was like watching an old film that you once thought was a masterpiece and now you realize that you've just grown up. After leaving a toxic relationship, a lot of space was freed up, both inside and out. And new things began to come into this space. I met people at a photography course I had long dreamed of taking. At first, I was just a participant, silent and a little distrustful. But it turned out that there are people with whom you can communicate without masks. Without benefits. Just people. Just a presence. It was amazing how easy it became with them. I no longer felt the pressure to be comfortable. They asked me how I was feeling and listened to my answer. They offered help without any hint of obligation. It was new. And at the same time, it felt so right. In such simple things, I began to reassess my understanding of friendship. One evening we were sitting in a small coffee shop after another photo shoot. Someone was telling a funny story about a cat, someone was joking about bad shots. And I suddenly felt that this was the real thing. Not loud promises, not brotherhood forever, but simply presence, sincerity, lightness. People who do not drag you down, but help you spread your wings. At the same time, I continued to work on myself. I turned to a psychotherapist, not because I couldn't cope, but because I wanted to understand myself more deeply. It turned out that my desire to be liked by everyone and my fear of being alone stemmed from my childhood. I was the child who received approval only for good behavior, so I learned to be convenient. Having realized this, I forgave myself for many things. I forgave myself for being silent when I should have spoken, for staying when I should have left, for putting others before myself. It was not a weakness, it was an experience. Not the most pleasant, but necessary. One day I came across a photo from the past, Ire, Maxim and I, smiling, hugging, as if everything was fine. I looked at this image for a long time, looking for an answer, what was the truth? And I realized I was sincere then, too. I just didn't see the whole. And now I do. And this knowledge is my strength. I did not feel angry with them. I didn't want to win back their friendship or prove myself right. I just let go. Like a leaf coming off a tree in autumn, not because of hatred, but because it was time. It seemed like everything was behind me. The past was in the past, and a new life was already gaining momentum. But, as is often the case, old stories don't always close on their own. They are waiting for the moment when you say, that's enough. That moment came unexpectedly. One day I received a message from Igor. It was after almost a year of silence. His text was simple, Hi. Can we meet? There's something I want to tell you. I looked at the screen for a long time. It felt like an old book that you had closed a long time ago had been opened, but it was back in your hands. Curious, anxious, but calm. I agreed to go. We met in the same coffee shop where we had once talked about change. He looked the same, a little older, maybe a little tired. I was different. Inside, I was not the same person I was a year ago. Igor spoke honestly. He said that he had noticed my absence from his life, but didn't understand the reason. He said that he began to rethink his relationships with many people and realized that he had often taken advantage of those around him. He didn't ask for forgiveness as a way in, he just admitted that he was wrong. I listened in silence. In every word he said, I heard a man who may have really come of age. But I also felt that my path was different. When he asked, maybe we can start from scratch? I answered sincerely, I don't need to start over. I am grateful for everything that happened, but I am on a different page. I don't hold any grudges. We just come from different stories. And it was a relief. Not an insult, not a drama. Just an adult moment. A conversation that was not about breaking up, but about ending. No quarrels. No tantrums. It was just period. I went outside, breathed in the air, and felt as if a kilogram of weight had remained in that coffee shop. Maxim never wrote again. I realized that some stories don't need any explanation at all. They are better left alone. Now I have a different circle of people, smaller, but real. People with whom I don't have to earn my presence. I have learned to set boundaries, to say no without guilt. I am no longer afraid to be alone because I know that I am my own best friend. This story is not about losing friends. It's about coming back to yourself. It is about the ability to say enough without feeling guilty. It's about the power to choose yourself not through selfishness, but through respect. Because in the end, true friends are not those who are there only when it's convenient for them. They are those who are always there for you. And the most important thing is you, with yourself. Forever.